Trước khi bắt đầu, nếu bạn đang tìm kiếm sách để học IELTS hiệu quả, thì đây là những cuốn sách chúng mình khuyên dùng. Bạn hãy xem ở phần giỏ hàng trong kênh nhé.
You will hear a talk about the island of New Guinea and some of the people of Papua New Guinea.
Today's talk is about the fascinating culture of New Guinea, an island divided in two politically, but with huge diversity in both parts. For those of you who don't know, New Guinea is located in Oceania, in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, north of Australia. Since 1975, the eastern side has been the independent country of Papua New Guinea, while the western side consists of the Indonesian-administered provinces of Papua and West Papua. Papua New Guinea has 7 million inhabitants and is an incredibly rural country, with only 18% of the population living in urban areas. It has 852 known languages, and is one of the least explored terrains on the planet. Now, one of the reasons that Papua New Guinea, and indeed the whole of New Guinea, is such an interesting place is that it's home to hundreds of traditional tribes, perhaps better described as distinct social groups, each one numbering hundreds or even thousands of members. In the Indonesian part of New Guinea, that is, the provinces of Papua and West Papua, there are 312 different tribes, including around 44 uncontacted ones. These are tribes who, up until now, hadn't had any contact with the outside world, even with other neighbouring tribes. Of course, everyone is most curious to know about these tribes, but, by definition, we have little or no information on them. I'm now going to talk about the tribes of the Papua New Guinea highlands. These people only rarely had contact with the outside world until the 1960s, so they are still relatively isolated. When we start to examine the tribes, we see a common theme, which is the use of various methods to intimidate other groups so as to protect their own tribe. Let's look first at the Huli Wigmen, a tribe of about 40,000 from the Tari Highlands of Papua New Guinea. They have given their faces a very distinctive look by using yellow paint, and they wear belts made of pigtails, aprons made of leaves, and wigs, which are a sort of hat made from their own hair. This look is designed to scare off outsiders, which they also do with their bird dances, which mimic the birds of paradise that inhabit their land. Another highland tribe, the Asaro Mudmen, have the same intention as the Huli Wigmen, to ward off outsiders. By smearing themselves in clay and mud, they adopt the form of the river spirits, which are known to terrify their enemies. Their elaborate appearance is further supplemented with extended fingernails, and they wear terrifying masks which serve to accentuate their ferocious look. The Asaro Mudmen were discovered by the outside world less than 80 years ago, but have now become a symbol of Papua New Guinea and make an important contribution to the tourist trade. A third tribe that has become well known is the Chimbu, who live high in the mountains. The Chimbu skeleton dancers used to dance to intimidate their enemies. This tribe traditionally lived in male-female segregated houses, though they are now increasingly living in family groups. This group too now display their traditional dances not to scare off other tribes, but more to entertain tourists. An interesting event, the Mount Hagen Sing Sing, takes place every year, involving over 50 tribes. This came about due to the constant fighting between tribes, which became a serious problem for the Papua New Guinea government. So, in 1961, it came up with the idea of a cultural show, which would bring together as many tribes as possible in peace and pride in their cultural heritage. The Mount Hagen Sing Sing is a wonderful opportunity for Papua New Guinea to showcase its fascinating cultural heritage. At this event, tourists and locals alike can witness the spectacular costumes, including 6-feet-high headdresses made of flowers, shells and feathers. Inevitably, there is some loss of authenticity associated with this kind of event. For example, chemical dyes are now used instead of the natural ones the tribes used earlier. However, a poor, developing country has to exploit whatever resources it has, and the wealth of this region is its tribal peoples.
Part 2. You will hear a member of staff called Mary Linden giving some information about their community centre. On behalf of our community centre, I'd like to welcome you all here today. My name is Mary Linden. As you can see here, this multi-purpose hall is a great venue for various events, including banquets, seminars or dances. The centre provides services for all ages. As the majority of you have already signed up for our dance workshops, I'll introduce relevant information first before we start the tour and get ourselves oriented. OK, now, when participants check in for their first dancing session, they will be given a class list printed with available seasonal classes ranging from Zumba to ballet, as well as detailed descriptions and schedules. The dance studio will also give you a complimentary shoe bag to store your dance shoes. Every week will be a surprise in cardio movement. Our fitness professional will guide you through an upbeat, heart-pumping, lively dance class. Therefore, it is highly advised to bring a face towel and a water bottle with you. As things get mixed up easily, you might also want to attach a name tag to your belongings. It will be sent to you by mail in advance. Now, let us get a closer look at our dance workshops and its curriculum. There is a list of activities to participate during and after each session. You'll have the chance to make your own costume, but it won't be held until tomorrow. You can also practice dance with music whenever the studio is available. In the first afternoon and evening of your dance class, there will be an introduction to the development of dance for the past few decades. Then we'll warm up with an informal dance. I know you don't have much experience in dancing, but we'll get there soon. Rest assured, there won't be a dance test until the end of the course. OK, now a word about the layout of the centre. Our beautiful facility has 25 rooms altogether, which are both very functional and aesthetically pleasing. We are standing here right at the entrance. To your left, you can see 2 rooms in a row. After each dance session, you're probably soaking in sweat and in desperate need of a shower. Just go straight ahead, turn left, and the shower room is on your left-hand side. If you just want to take a nap, there is a 6-bed bunk room. It's immediately to the left of where you are standing, right before the shower room. We also have a games room with dartboards, table tennis, pool and card games. It is a good place to have fun with friends. Just take the first right. It is the second area to your right. You can explore it well later during our tour. Further ahead, in the corner, there are the bike racks. You can either park your bike here or hire one if you want a ride. The first hour is free. Part of our dance sessions will take place in the music room. It has a large mirror with various musical instruments and state-of-the-art stereos. If you want to get there, just go straight, take the second right, and it's the second area to your left. Our friendly reception team is an invaluable resource for any visitor to the centre. If your mobile phone needs charging, we have several adapters and can easily get your phone back up and running again. We also offer a range of chargeable services, including photocopy, scanning and faxing. The reception is located in the centre to the south of the music room. There is a medical centre providing a full spectrum of care and treatment, especially for sports injuries like a sprained knee. It's right opposite the reception to the left of the music room. Now, I have to tell you about our gym, where some of our dance sessions take place. It is also equipped with the latest equipment, including exercise bikes, treadmills, rowing machines, etc. If you walk straight ahead before you come to the end and turn right, it's the second room to your left. And speaking of food, if you ever feel hungry, you can either cook in the kitchen or grab a snack at the store. To reach it, keep straight on until you get to the third passageway, turn right, and it's the one after the gym. And the kitchen sits right next to the gym on the same side of the passageway. It has all the utensils you'll need, spatulas, frying pans, ladles and plates. You name it, just feel free to use it. By the way, if you have coats, umbrellas or any large bags with you, the cloakroom is available. It's the room in the top right corner on the far side. Right, well, if you're ready, we'll start the tour of our lovely community centre. Part 3. You will hear a student called Sansa discussing the job market and employers' hiring strategies with her tutor.
For today's session, we're going to look at the job market and employers' hiring strategies. It mainly takes great people to generate and execute efficient strategies and ideas. In fact, a company's growth is strongly supported by its human resources. Therefore, we'll look at the determining factors for recruitment, the traits of a successful applicant, and the possible reasons for rejection. First, let's take a look at the job market for students who have just graduated from secondary schools.
So, what should they focus on when applying for a job? Is education the most important factor in recruitment?
Well, actually, the degree is not that important. It's not the only factor that personnel managers take into consideration. Some employees with years of work experience still have a competitive edge over fresh graduates with a higher educational degree. However, with neither an impressive educational background nor practical experience, secondary school graduates should stress that they have great enthusiasm for work. Employees who are interested in their job often work hard and are willing to take more responsibilities.
What else should they highlight during a job interview?
Well, it is wise for them to demonstrate that they possess valuable characteristics, such as curiosity, willingness to learn new stuff, and good interpersonal skills. Companies favour applicants who are easygoing and fit in quickly.
Right, but I guess things get harder for women to re-enter the workforce and reconnect after raising children at home.
Absolutely. After taking an extended absence from work, women with young children have to strike a good balance between work and family. Changes have to be made within the family to ensure they have sufficient working hours. Apart from that, they are working with totally new colleagues in an unfamiliar workplace. After even 2 or 3 years of absence, they face challenges of rusty or obsolete skills. Even though they're quite confident in themselves, they often find it hard to adapt to these changes. But on the other hand, many employers find these mature women valuable assets in the workplace. They are excellent role models for younger employees, as being quite motivated and with strong work ethic.
Indeed, employers not only need qualified, but also flexible and well-trained employees. Given the experience, perspectives and stability, these women are offered unique opportunities in today's workplace.
Yes, exactly.
So what kind of people do companies generally find unwelcoming? Will they consider candidates from a rival company?
Well, actually, hiring employees from a competing firm is not a taboo. Highly skilled workers are always welcomed no matter where they're from. What concerns employers the most is how they left the previous company that they had worked for years. If they have been fired, they must have done something wrong during the previous job.
What about people who remain unemployed for a considerable period of time?
Well, this type of employee isn't at the bottom of the employment list. The reason why they remain unemployed is the key. Most companies cast doubts on applicants who left the job simply because they didn't like the working hours or the work assigned. Have you read any articles about worker retrenchment?
Yes, worker retrenchment on a massive scale is sometimes introduced as one of the short-term measures to resuscitate the industry through the reduction of overhead costs. Workers are also laid off as companies restructure and reform. But what happens to these retrenched workers afterwards? Is it easy for them to find another job?
Well, generally companies are reluctant to hire them.
Why is that? They must have plenty of work experience in the previous industry. Isn't that a strength for them in the job market?
Actually, new industries are eager to hire experienced workers, but retrenched workers know nothing about other industries, and it also costs employers more to retrain them. They need training courses to acquire relevant skills and qualifications for a new career.
Our government is providing public training programs to help them identify their current skills and acquire new skills to improve their career options. Isn't that right?
Yes, but retrenched workers are generally too old. They are less motivated and energized at work. Companies thus prefer younger employees to them. They are also reluctant to adjust and are unwilling to be retrained.
Do retrenched workers from companies with big names have an advantage over other job applicants?
No. Employers today value skills more than where they're previously from.
Right. So, what are the most common factors of rejection during application?
Applicants are rejected mainly for 3 reasons. First, they have experience and skills that are irrelevant to the industry. Even experienced workers may receive rejection letters. Wearing appropriate clothes and how they look during an interview are key to a successful interview. No matter how good their presentation skills are, a shirt with stains or informal clothes like a pair of jeans only means the applicants aren't taking the interview seriously.
Yes, during an interview, formal dress is key to a good start and will inevitably affect how people evaluate you later. What's the third factor? Let me guess, is it interpersonal skills?
Yes, companies are eager to hire people who can work well with others and fit in quickly. It's difficult to work in an environment full of conflicts. Therefore, people who don't get along well with others are often rejected.
I see. Part 4. You will hear part of a presentation about the early history of salt.
In my presentation, I'm going to talk about salt. In modern times, when we talk about salt, people may associate it with high blood pressure or increased heart risk, and many health experts warn that we should use less salt in our meals and dishes. However, we should not ignore its importance in our cuisine and even in early human history. Salt is one of the oldest, most ubiquitous food seasonings. The taste of salt is one of the basic human tastes. More importantly, salt plays an indispensable role in the health of human beings. For example, it regulates the body's acid-base balance. Because of its importance to survival, salt has often been considered a valuable commodity during human history. This can be tracked all the way back to ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and ancient Rome, when salt was highly valued and used as a method of trade and currency. In ancient Rome, the busiest road leading to the city was the Via Salaria, which means the salt route in English. A soldier's pay, which partly consisted of salt, was known as salarium argentum in Latin, from which we derived the English word salary. A soldier's salary was cut if he was not worth his salt, an expression still used today. In fact, salt was not only the first condiment discovered, but also the first preservative. We know today that food goes bad because microorganisms in the food multiply in abundance, and a high salt environment is not conducive to microbial reproduction. Extremely high concentrations of salt can even kill microorganisms in the food. The ancients certainly didn't know this, but they did know that salted food can be preserved for a long time. The use of salt as a preservative can be traced to ancient Sweden. At first, hunting was the principal means of livelihood. In this case, meat supplies were unlikely to be frequent. What's more, fewer animals were available for hunting. In order to ensure the supply of meat, many families in Sweden began to raise animals in the surrounding forests during the summer when the weather was suitable for animals to survive. These animals were fed every day until about 3 to 4 months later. That's in October, they were ready to be butchered for meat, and that was the only month when ancient Swedish people had fresh meat on their table. Then, with the continuous increase in productivity, people finally had some meat left. However, how to store the meat had become a headache until someone invented a whole new way to preserve food: salting. People tried to keep meat from going bad by adding some salt to it, and it could be preserved for several months and even years. There was evidence that salt was widely used to preserve meat. Historical documents in 1573 recorded the Swedish king's everyday meals, mentioning that 175 pounds of meat was consumed each year, but over 150 pounds was salty. From this, we can clearly see the importance of salt in Sweden at that time. In addition, the documents also noted the annual sales of beer in Sweden soared during that period, and this must be related to high levels of salt in their food. Now, let's turn to the sources of salt. Where is salt from? Well, salt is common in nature. It has long been found that salt can be extracted from seawater, mineral deposits, saline lakes, brine, spring, etc., among which the two most important ones are oceans and basins. On the floor of the latter often lie deserts, where traces of salt can be found, such as the Sahara. Furthermore, the quality of different salt types varies a lot. For example, salt from seawater is always mixed with impurities, so after the salt is dried, the sediments and other chemicals need to be purified before eating. However, this is not the case with salt from spring water. We can hardly find any impurities, and the salt level is much more concentrated. Then, how did people distribute salt around the world? Of course, in modern times, we have various ways of transporting goods, but in ancient times, it was not the case. Take ancient Sweden, we mentioned before, as an example. Because of the heavy use of salt in the diet, Sweden could not feed itself and had to import large amounts of salt from other countries. In order to make sure they could buy enough salt from abroad, the Swedish had to attach great importance to shipping and keep it undamaged, as it was the most crucial way at that time. While in other ancient countries, in order to distribute salt to other places, groups of men were employed. They put bags of salt on their shoulders or backs and moved them to the surrounding regions, and gradually these people were considered as a mode of transport in early times. Later, with the improvement of traffic conditions, salt trade between different regions was boosted, and long-distance food trade was also promoted, making communication between different cultures more frequent and...